I'm Elex Michaelson. This week, the issue is California leaders versus President Trump.
He is not a monarch, he is not a king, and he should stop acting like one.
With us in a broadcast exclusive locally, Governor Gavin Newsom. Plus, representing the Trump administration, we sit down with U.S. Attorney Bill Essayli and insights from Pulitzer Prize-winning LA Times columnist Gustavo Arellano. The issue is starts right now.
Broadcasting across California, you're watching The Issue Is.
I hope it's the beginning of a new day in this country where we push back against overreach. We push back against these authoritarian tendencies of a president that has pushed the boundaries, pushed the limit, but no longer can push this state.
Was Governor Newsom after beating President Trump in court for a moment to win over control of the National Guard. That decision, though, now stayed pending appeal, which will be heard next week. Welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Elex Michaelson. The issue of immigration has long been perhaps the most divisive issue of all. This week, the issue of ICE raids led to peaceful protests in the streets, riots in the streets, and the military in the streets. Our senior senator was handcuffed, and our governor ended up in court against the President of the United States. Things were ramping up Sunday night. We sat down with Governor Gavin Newsom at LA's Emergency Operations Center. It's his only local interview with a broadcast TV station this week. What is your main message to the people of California in this moment?
Well, that Donald Trump is reckless, he's immoral. He's taken the illegal and unconstitutional act of federalizing the National Guard, and he's putting lives at risk.
I mean, is it truly unconstitutional? I know it's been done before.
Well, I mean, in his own executive order, it directs the Department of Defense to collaborate with state governors. So by definition, it's illegal. There was no collaboration. There was no counsel, no consideration of the rules of engagement. It was a reckless act that has led to conditions that have been exacerbated, and it's putting people's lives at risk.
You guys talked the other night, right?
Yes, we did.
What was that conversation like?
It was a very collaborative conversation. It was a very good conversation. And he didn't really want to engage on the issues of LA, which was the great irony of this. He wanted to talk about a myriad of other issues.
He came out and said that when you guys spoke, he warned you that if you didn't get things under control, he was going to bring in troops.
Stone cold liar. Stone cold liar. He made that up, like he makes up so many other things. He never said that.
And he also seemed to make up this idea that the National Guard did a great job last night when they weren't here.
They weren't even deployed, and he claimed victory. He's lost it. He hasn't lost a step. And I saw him trip on the steps today. I mean, this is serious. He is not the same person that I dealt with just 4 years ago. And he's incapable now of even a train of thought. He's making things up.
And lastly, there's a lot of people who are scared right now, especially a lot of people who are Latino who are here legally, who are worried they may be taken away. That's a huge percentage of California's population.
Well, I mean, it goes to 40% of the population.
What do you say?
We're a majority minority state. 27% of the state's foreign-born. All these mixed status families.
What's your message to those people tonight?
They matter and we care. And that's why we're being so aggressive right now, pushing back against these authoritarian tendencies of Donald Trump. That's why we're standing tall with 22 lawsuits. That's why we did a special session. And you guys, many of you called me out as, it's too extreme. Shouldn't you be working with Donald Trump during his transition when I called that special session? And we've used those resources to file over 22 lawsuits. We're filing more as we speak. And then included, by the way, $50 million that we set aside, or $25 million specifically for legal aid to help these families, so that we had their back, because we knew something would happen. But I gotta say, I never expected Donald Trump to do this.
Our thanks to the governor. You can check out our full interview right now at youtube.com/Elex Michaelson. When we come back, get the administration's perspective from U.S. Attorney Bill Essayli.
Throwing rocks, explosives, assaulting agents, and committing other acts of violence are extremely dangerous and will not be tolerated.
That is U.S. Attorney Bill Essayli talking about holding rioters accountable. We sat down with him at the federal building in Westwood. Bill Essayli, welcome to The Issue Is.
Thank you for having me.
So we are here. This is the room where it happened in terms of the Kristi Noem press conference, which you were at, when Elex Padilla literally walked like right in this spot. What did that look like from your perspective?
It was a little bizarre and wild. We were up there holding a national TV press conference. The secretary was speaking, and just from the corner, I see he's a very large person. He's very tall. He's got a big demeanor, and he started charging, pushing his way through the security, shouting. We didn't know he was here. We didn't know who he was at the time. And then he started shouting, and then he was dragged out. It all happened in a matter of seconds. I think he did yell, "I'm Senator Padilla," at some point, but it was after all the commotion started. My understanding is he was taken outside, so we didn't see what happened. But my understanding,
you've seen the video.
I've seen the videos. Look, the agents, I think, were extremely professional. They did their job. Their job is to protect cabinet members.
Was it necessary to handcuff him out in the
hallway? They didn't know. I'll be honest. I talked to them. They didn't know who he was. They did not know he was a U.S. Senator. It was the room was filled, as you know, with these press conferences. There's a lot of people in the room. There's a lot of reporters, journal, print, TV, and it just was someone that started charging, and they just went into defense mode. Their job is to defend cabinet members, and so they detained them. It is standard to detain someone, handcuff them, but as soon as it was known he was a U.S. Senator, he was immediately unhandcuffed. He was never under arrest. He was free to leave, and I believe the secretary even granted him a meeting afterwards, and they spoke for about 15 minutes or so.
Well, let's talk more about what the press conference was about and everything that's happened in this sort of extraordinary week.
But I just need to say something about it, though, because if he wanted to meet and have a genuine good faith dialogue, there's a process and a way to do that. He could have requested a meeting. He came looking for a show, and he had his staff ready to film everything so they can be a victim.
So you think it was a stunt?
It was absolutely a stunt, and he wanted he wanted to be a martyr, and that we didn't want to facilitate that, of course. But there is a proper way to do things. There's decorum. We need to be respectful. There's different branches of government. That is not the way to have a proper conversation.
In terms of this week, we've talked before, and a lot of people thought that the emphasis of the Trump administration would be getting rid of criminals, targeting criminals who are here illegal but have also committed other crimes. Is that what's happening? Are other people being caught up in this?
Let me tell you what's happening. Our focus, our priority is to target criminal illegal immigrants who are here. What is hampering our ability to do that, and I think Matt Seedorf was out with some of our agents yesterday and documented that, we're out there, we're looking for it. It's hard to find people, and we get no cooperation from the state of California. Because of SB 54 and sanctuary state policies, we're unable to work with the jails, we're unable to work with local sheriff and police officers to screen people for their immigration status when they commit crimes and to focus on those people and have them removed. We're able to do that in other states. What that causes is that our agents have to go out into the community and do enforcement operations. And the administration has said we can't ignore the law. So when they do that and they encounter people that are here unlawfully, they are subject to deportation and administrative proceedings. So I would say the state of California needs to reverse sanctuary state. They need to take that away so we can work together to target people who have criminal backgrounds or engage in criminal activity. That would be our preference.
But that's probably not happening anytime soon, right? You'd acknowledge that.
That's up to them.
Yeah. But you know the legislature. Well, you just came from there. They're probably not changing the sanctuary policy.
Then they're responsible for what you're seeing.
You think so? So in terms of the images, though, of people going into farms or people going at a church or a car wash, some of this, I mean, it's frightening to people. And a lot of the people saying, I'm not here, I'm not a criminal who's done a bunch of stuff. Right. What do you say to those people?
Well, it's hard to comment on any particular situation because we don't know who the target was at that particular location. But for sure, there are what we call collateral apprehensions in that process where people who might not have a criminal history are being swept up because we have to go out and cast, you might say, a broader net when we go out and do these operations. But again, I'm speaking for the Department of Justice. I'm not speaking for DHS. I will tell you at DOJ in my office, we are laser focused on criminal illegal immigrants.
Let's talk about some of the different prosecutions that you're doing, because we had a whole lot of violence and recklessness in the streets of Southern California this week. What's the status of going after some of those people?
We have already filed dozens of charges. We are charging people with assault on federal officers. We are charging people with assaults against local officers as well. In time of civil disobedience, we actually have a federal statute we can charge. We are charging people with arson and with possession of explosive devices. We charged 2 individuals who were using Molotov cocktails. But we did arrest a guy that was handing out face shields to all what looked like the rioters. So we're looking at a lot of angles.
Yeah, so that was live on our air, and I spotted that happening and pointed it out in real time. And you guys found the guy who was handing out face shields to people. But there's and the FBI is part of that.
Yes.
But I'm people watching that might think, well, is that a crime to hand out face shields? What's wrong with that?
Well, if you watch the video, you saw it live. He wasn't handing it out to peaceful protesters. He was handing it out to people who were dressed in all black.
Did they commit any crimes? I mean, how is that profiling them?
You have to look at what was going on at the time. These are people, you had lots of people engaged in violence, destruction of property, assaults on officers, impeding activities down in downtown. That was in downtown Los Angeles.
Right.
He wasn't handing them out at the beach. He was there at downtown Los Angeles, and he's handing out to people who are dressed and behaving similarly to the people who've been committing riots. These are people hiding their faces, wearing black from top to bottom. They have backpacks filled with projectiles. Why would a peaceful protester need a face shield?
Well, they would say that they're afraid that the cops are going to attack them. That's what they say.
Cops don't attack people. Cops enforce the law. And if you're located somewhere where it's declared an unlawful assembly, you shouldn't be there, you're committing a crime. And in fact, LAPD has started arresting people for that. So why would a peaceful protester need a face shield?
One of the questions that I said at the time when you see that is that clearly somebody is funding this,
Absolutely.
right? Who is funding this?
We'll get to the bottom of that. We can't.
You don't have the answer to that
I don't
yet?
have the answer right now.
Or you're not willing to tell the answer
I
yet?
can't say either way. That is an active investigation. All I can assure you is we will get to the bottom of it.
We get a different perspective on what happened with Senator Elex Padilla from LA Times columnist Gustavo Arellano when we come back.
To every single person.
Sir, hands up, hands up. I'm Senator Elex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary because the fact of the matter is.
That moment of Senator Elex Padilla eventually being put into handcuffs has become a bit of a political Rorschach's test. People see it very differently. Gustavo Arellano has a strong view. His latest column for the LA Times is entitled Senator Elex Padilla's Crime? Being Mexican in MAGA America. Gustavo Arellano, welcome back to The Issue Is.
Gracias as always, Alex.
When you see Senator Padilla put into handcuffs, what do you see?
I see someone, well, first and foremost, I see the senior U.S. Senator of California. I also see someone who had clearance to get into a building. You don't just saunter into the federal building, especially in that area, and not have clearance and people knowing who he is. And so at the end, I just see a complete disrespect of the man and someone, especially, and this is what gets me the most. Are you to tell me that both Kristi Noem and Bill Essayli did not know who Elex was right off the bat? They've just been in the same circles forever. Why couldn't they just stop and tell the security guys, hey, like, leave him alone. This is let him speak. And by the way, if they had just let him speak, let's just say that he would not be the person that he's being made out to be today, which is a hero or a villain. On the other hand, in other words, a Mexican.
So I just talked to Bill Essayli, and he said it was hard to tell who he was at first. The whole thing was very quick. He said that the agents outside had no idea who he was. They didn't know that he was a senator, and that's why they acted that way. And he said that the whole thing was a stunt, that Padilla was trying to get attention. He could have just called in advance, booked an appointment, and that he showed up sort of unannounced, trying to create a scene. What do you say to that?
First and foremost, if Bill, who saw Elex, does not know who Elex Padilla is, he is unfit to serve as U.S. Attorney. You've been in the assembly, you know exactly who Padilla is. And also, Elex is tall, he is dark, he's deep voice, he is very distinctive. The security guards, I get it. They're not probably paying attention to who their electeds are. I totally excuse them. But Bill knows who he is. Kristi knows who he is. Give me a break. And this is the funny thing, though. Like, yeah, you want to call it a stunt? the last person you would ever think of doing a stunt in California's both congressional and senatorial team in California is Elex Padilla. Everyone who knows him, in fact, the critique always against Alex was that he was too timid, that he wouldn't do the stunts that a Marjorie Taylor Greene or a Rand Paul or even like say AOC or these others do. So obviously Alex was filled with the spirit. Alex was filled with, you know what, I've had enough. I'm walking down and you're like, oh wow, she's saying something. Let me ask her a question right now because you know he's enraged. A lot of people are enraged. So Bill, come on, man, no te hagas.
In terms of the larger issue, though, beyond just the Padilla issue, we've seen all the crowds in the street. We see the extraordinary anger and fear from a lot of folks in your community right now when it comes to ICE. I know you've been chronicling this over the years. You think about Prop 187 years ago here in California, which drove a lot of people, frankly, to be Democrats. It changed our state's politics. How do you see this as a flexion point in the politics of California?
When I was covering it in Santana, overwhelmingly it was young people. I would say the average age of the people there, and the crowd was probably, it was like 600, 700 when I was there on Monday. Average age was like 24. You had so many young people who really probably have never voted, if we want to be honest, just based on the type of people that I was seeing there. But they're upset. I also talked to people who I'm sure you could tell that they probably voted for Donald Trump because they said, you know what, I have no issue with Trump deporting the violent criminals at all. But that's not what this current deportation efforts as of this past week is. They're nabbing people just right off the street. And so that is very upsetting. Now, is this going to lead to a new political movement? I'm not sure. But what I would say is Trump's biggest error was in targeting LA. He let his hatred of Los Angeles blind him to easy politics, easy political wins. All he had to do was do these big raids in states that don't have Latino political power.
Do you think, though, that maybe Trump wanted that fight? That the idea of going at it with the blue states, a place like Los Angeles, is good for him, that he likes seeing the scenes of all the people in the streets?
That's what I wrote in my columna on Monday for the Times, is that Trump wants Los Angeles to burn itself, because then he gets justified in sending in the National Guard, in sending in the Marines. You just want to get rid of all illegal immigrants. You don't care if they're a child. You don't care if they're a serial killer. You just want to get rid of all of them. Spare us to care about communities and just be honest.
Well, Gustavo Arellano, obviously folks in the Trump administration disagree with that, but we appreciate you sharing your views. Thank you so much, and you can read Gustavo's work at latimes.com.
Gracias.
Up next, my commentary on cooling down the temperature amidst all this hate.
As we end one of the most heated weeks in modern memory, I am genuinely worried that if things don't cool down, somebody is going to be killed. Images of rioting and looting, troops in the streets, a senator being handcuffed, all of this feels like an inflection point. Far too many people right now see their political opponents as enemies, and too often less than human. And there's a reason why. Our media, especially our social media, has realized that it is easier for them to make money by making you hate someone rather than finding mutual understanding. Politicians get way more attention for mocking the other side rather than compromising with them. Ever since he came down that escalator back in 2015, no one has understood this dynamic better than Donald Trump. Last year, when I was reporting at the RNC, I asked Trump supporters for one word to describe him. Almost everybody said the same thing: fighter. They love him for his fight. His opponents despise him for his fight. But the truth is, Democrats are desperate for their own fighter. Gavin Newsom seems to now recognize this. When Newsom tried to sit down and better understand Republican Charlie Kirk, his base revolted. But this week, as Newsom relentlessly attacked Trump in the most blunt and most personal ways yet, he saw a huge increase in online followers, fundraising dollars, and national media attention. This dynamic is why we haven't had fundamental immigration reform since 1986, the year I was born. In the last almost 40 years, both parties have had periods of unified control of government when they could have passed whatever they want. But neither one actually passed comprehensive immigration legislation. See, if they actually solved the problem, they couldn't raise money by playing off their base's ideological hatred of the other side. Because of that, I'm not naive. I don't think the federal government is going to fix this issue anytime soon. So in the meantime, we all have to find a way to live with each other. I'd suggest we start by acknowledging 4 fundamental facts that should not be controversial. First, we live in a nation of laws, and in order to make that system work, we need law enforcement. The overwhelming majority of law enforcement officers, including ICE agents, are good, hardworking people who are just trying to do a difficult job and get home to their families. They don't deserve to be doxxed, have rocks thrown at them, or Molotov cocktails. Second, the overwhelming majority of people in this country without documentation are also good, hardworking people who love their families. Our laws refer to them as illegal aliens, but they're not creatures from another planet. Regardless of the citizenship debate, they are entitled to human dignity and respect. Third, there is a fundamental right to free speech in this country. Peaceful protesters should be protected. Fourth, there is not a fundamental right to violence, and criminals should be arrested. In the days ahead, hopefully all of us can pause for a moment and take a deep breath. And after you do, I challenge you to challenge your social media algorithm. Go out of your way to intentionally seek out opinions from those you disagree with, to at least better understand where somebody's coming from. And then take some time to stop the doom scrolling, put down your phone, go outside, and actually meet people face to face and talk about things that have nothing to do with politics that we all can agree on, like religion and sports. Look, we all have a role in turning down the temperature. And if we don't, we all could be on a dangerous path towards civil war. I'm Elex Michaelson. Thanks for watching. The Issue Is.